Hi, my name is Jonathan Baha'i. I am the president of the Peerplays Blockchain Standards Association, an organization dedicated to provably fair gaming, which we are bringing to the world, thanks to the help of blockchain technology.
All right, so my name is Kelly Cadell. I am a bunker experience supervisor here at Enter the Bunker. Yes, I know you taught me last time about how blockchain is so secure. So tell me today, what am I going to learn?
In the last episode, I touched on the security aspects of blockchain.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Today, I want to get into a little bit more detail about that.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to talk today about a process that everybody talks about that you might have heard, which is called mining. Okay. So mining is actually the process which is used in public blockchains to verify the transactions that come into the blockchain and add them to the blockchain.
Okay.
And miners operate independently of each other all over the world.
Okay. So do the miners dig it out of the dirt, or what is the process of getting the cryptocurrencies?
So let me make one thing clear before I get into the dirt.
Okay.
So when miners are mining, they're not actually mining cryptocurrencies. So they're not bringing cryptocurrencies into existence when they're doing mining.
Okay.
Okay. But they're also not digging in the dirt for the cryptocurrency either. Okay.
Didn't figure, but
Well,
you never know.
But the truth is that mining is very so. Regular mining that you're talking about, like say we're talking about gold or diamonds,
Yeah.
right? That kind of process is very similar to the process when it comes to mining cryptocurrencies.
Okay.
All right, so this is why they call it that.
Okay.
So the difference is though is that when you're mining in a public blockchain, you're validating the transactions, and so the transactions that are coming to the network are being validated, and then the miner is processing that, bringing that into the network, and then for that, the miner is going to be rewarded with the cryptocurrency of that network.
Okay.
So in Bitcoin, for example, what happens is that the miners will continue to provide all kinds of computing power to the network, and then eventually, if they provide enough, they will eventually be able to be rewarded with Bitcoin from the network. Okay.
Right.
This happens whatever the different network is. If you're in the Peerplays network, you're going to receive PPY.
Okay.
If you're in Ethereum, you're going to receive Ether. So it's different with every single blockchain.
So how does the process of a miner validating a transaction happen?
There's a number of ways this can happen.
Okay.
Within blockchain, what happens is that we use something what's called a consensus mechanism.
Okay.
All right. Now, mining can happen in a couple of different ways, and this consensus mechanisms are different ways of ensuring that the transactions are being validated.
Okay.
All right. The first and most popular is called proof of work.
Okay.
Okay. POW.
Proof of work.
Yeah. So proof of work is what Bitcoin runs on.
Okay.
All right. It's slower. You're basically just throwing a ton of computing power at the network. Okay. Everybody is throwing as much computing power as they can. The ones with the most are going to end up getting most of the rewards. Right.
Right.
So then it becomes a competition. All right.
Okay.
And this has led to immense competition in the Bitcoin blockchain. Right.
It would.
Because there's massive amounts of power being consumed, and some countries think, oh, this is a terrible waste, and so forth. But I tend to disagree. If you look at the amount of power that the banks use for the way that they handle their money, it's actually much larger than what Bitcoin actually uses.
Okay.
Regardless, some people feel that just throwing power at this thing in order to be able to create cryptocurrency is a waste. Okay, so there are countries like China who are now talking about banning it. There are some countries who have actually banned it simply because they feel like this is a waste of our power and we shouldn't be using that kind of consensus mechanism. So that's proof of work.
Okay.
Then there's another popular consensus mechanism called proof of stake. Okay. Now in that scenario, it's not about the computing power. It's more about who has the most coins. Okay. Who has the most cryptocurrencies and who's willing to lock up as much of it in order to become a validator within the network. Okay. So the game theory behind that is that if you have a lot of that token, okay, whatever that cryptocurrency is, if you have a lot of that and you've locked a lot of that into the network, you want to ensure that network's going to run properly, right? Otherwise, it's going to lose value.
Right.
And all your cryptocurrency now goes down, right?
And you don't want that to happen.
Not fun. No. So the idea is that as humans, they'd be highly motivated to ensure that the transactions are being validated properly.
Okay.
Right? So proof of stake is where there's a competition of who holds the most. The one who holds the most is going to end up validating most of the transactions.
Okay.
Right? It's much more efficient energy-wise because it just uses regular computing, like it just uses regular servers.
Okay.
Right? So with this, you have higher energy efficiency. Some people believe, though, and if you search in various YouTube channels and you hear experts in the space,
Yeah.
some people actually regard proof of stake as not even like real blockchain, because some people believe proof of work is like the only real blockchain, and you'll hear these comments,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
But the truth is that it's another consensus mechanism that is very popular. It has worked well. There hasn't been, there are pros and cons to all of these things.
Right.
So this is just another way to do it.
And that's proof of stake.
Proof of stake.
Okay.
So we got proof of work, proof of stake. And now the third most popular one is called delegated proof of stake.
Delegated
So,
proof of stake.
DPOS.
DPOS.
Yeah, so some people pronounce that differently. But
Yeah.
so delegated proof of stake is very similar to proof of stake,
Yeah.
where you still have to take your cryptocurrency, you still have to lock it up,
Right.
but instead of you validating the transactions, you're able to then take whatever cryptocurrency you have and delegate that as a vote to somebody else who's going to do those transactions. Okay. So in the case of delegated proof of stake, let's say that you own cryptocurrency in that in a DPOS network.
Okay.
You don't really know how to set up, the technical requirements of running a node,
Right.
But you care about your cryptocurrency,
Yeah.
right? You want to see it do well,
Yeah.
right? So what happens is that you want to be able to take your voting power that you have with the currency you have, and be able to point it to node operators who are basically offering themselves as service providers. They're trusted,
Okay.
right? So they are offering to be able to be nodes in the network and operate their nodes. So what you're going to do with that then is decide, okay, does that guy have really good resources? Is he going to make sure that it's running all the time? Is he going to ensure that the network's going to be up and running all the time, right?
Yeah.
And so if they don't, then the game theory there is that, well, then they lose their votes. They drop out of the network. They're no longer able to validate the transactions,
Right.
So in delegated proof of stake, it's much more of a kind of a democracy, right? You're able to vote for who you feel is going to be the best operator.
Okay.
And it's very easy to track how people are performing in
Yeah.
that kind of network, because you're going to see when, if they're missing blocks, or if they're other activities that they're doing in the community to support the network, right?
Yeah.
So these are the kinds of things that happen in DPOS. One of the most popular blockchains that uses DPOS is EOS. Peerplays also uses DPOS.
Okay.
BitShares also uses DPOS. Steam uses DPOS. So there's a number of very popular public blockchains which use DPOS and with the voting mechanism. So these are all the various ways. There's many others. There's like proof of elapsed time, and there's proof of brain. There's like, yeah, I know, like, whoa. It's like, I'm proving my brain to validate the blockchain.
Yeah. Seems scary.
Yeah. So kind of matrixy.
Yeah.
So there's many different ways to do this.
Okay.
And so there's many different consensus mechanisms. People will argue back and forth about which one is really the best,
Right.
and there's pros and cons to them all. There's always trade-offs. But the fact is that these are all mechanisms to ensure that in a public, decentralized, open blockchain,
Yeah.
you're able to have various actors be able to ensure that it's always being secured, right?
Yeah.
So in the case of proof of work, just to get a little more into the background.
Yeah.
So the reason why everybody loves Bitcoin so much is because so much computing power is actually making it more secure.
Okay.
So the chances of somebody being able to provide enough computing power to overtake what's there
Yeah.
is just almost
Almost
impossible.
impossible.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just like it's too much,
Yeah.
right? But if some new cryptocurrency that's really small
Yeah.
uses proof of work,
Yeah.
and they only got so much computing power, to put towards it, it's really easy for somebody to come along and just
Scoop that right up.
take it right over, right?
Yeah.
So those are the dangers of that, and that's what some people call a 51% attack, if
Okay.
you've heard that term.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
In DPOS, or in proof of stake, in POS,
Yeah.
the danger in that situation is the fact that somebody owns like all the tokens, and all the validation ends up with one party, right?
Yeah.
So in that case, it's like, okay, you haven't achieved any decentralization then, right? So how's that any better?
Yeah.
Right? And then in delegated proof of stake, some of the dangers of that is that the idea that the voting is actually going to only certain people that are all kind of, they're worried about collusion, or they're worried about things like the politics of it all, you know, sort of thing. So, and then of course, somebody who has a lot of tokens can just vote for themselves as well. So they all have trade-offs, but the fact is that they've all proven themselves in the real world.
Okay.
You know, they've all been operating now for a number of years, and there have been cases of attacks, but they've all come and gone, but all the major networks have never really suffered the attacks per se, because simply because the larger they get, the harder it is.
All right, so this is a lot of information. I will try to retain as much as I can from it.
So if you have any questions, feel free to give any feedback in the comments below. Be sure to smash that like, ding that bell. We are going to be doing more in the next episode, but be sure to leave comments if you want me to be able to cover some things, and I'll be happy to try to answer them.